And the last thing, the wow thing is, we have this other business, so we send people a cheese basket after we launch the website, and they all get a kick out of that.
Jason, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. So how do we market? We don't spend money on a marketing budget. We don't have a PR firm. We don't do any advertising. I would say the way that we market and do customer service is to invest all of that same money we would otherwise put into marketing and advertising and put it into our culture and customer service. And our culture is really about the employees and making sure that they're loyal and happy, and they'll say the same thing I'm saying to you today if you question them through a side dialogue, through Twitter or a blog or whatever else. Which leads me to my next point. She mentioned a paradigm shift. I had this quote here I wanted to mention. People may not remember exactly what you did or what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I think if you focus on that with the wow factor, or like we literally nourish our customers with cheese, that's going to be what resonates and leads to referrals and customer retention. I'll get to the paradigm shift in a second. 2 minutes? 1 minute left. So I didn't go to business school and learn all about formulas and all, customer lifetime value and all these other things. But I did learn what I think the major takeaway is. If you do study all those formulas, it's cheaper to retain customers than it is to get new customers. And it's cheaper to let your customers do marketing for you, which they can with social media. That leads to this, to my last point, which is that things really are changing. There's a paradigm shift going on, and social media is changing the game, and it's not going away. It's not just a buzzword. We're living in an age of greater transparency, and you have a competitive edge if you understand that, and if you do it better than the big corporations. They're going to have a lot more pain dealing with this paradigm shift than a small business will, because they're all structured so that their message comes through a tight little funnel through a marketing department or a PR department. And they don't realize that they can't do that anymore because there's back channel discussions going on with Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. And so they need to change their culture as opposed to trying to control their messaging through one little filter. And that's the result of what social media is doing. So it is about transparency. And I think the big takeaway from a customer service perspective is to learn about these technologies and use them. For us with B2C, Yelp has been a really educational experience, understanding that people start talking about you and how do you react to that, and it's unique that you can get this feedback that you never had before. Yep, that's it. 12 minutes?
All right, any questions? I know I have one major takeaway from both the presentations. Know your cow. It's very important. But anyway, any questions?
Should I pass this back to you, or are we passing it around now?
I guess more comment than question. Actually, several comments. I don't know whether started out what you said about Yelp. Have you had any problems with Yelp? Because I know there was some flaming, whatever else.
Tons of problems with
now
Yelp. I hate it.
And now, as I understand, you're now able to respond back.
Yes, they've created a little business where if you can, as an owner, you can now participate and get a dialogue and respond directly to people who have commented on you without putting it up publicly. And what's important about that is if you respond publicly, it just creates more buzz around that thread. All of a sudden, if you engage in a dialogue, and usually they're unreasonable people who are just complaining. They're saying things that aren't true, and they're being very emotional. And if you get tied up in it, suddenly that thread rises up to the top, and it's the most popular thread. Which is, I guess there's no such thing as negative publicity, but I think in that case there is, because it's a website that's saying you stink and you have 1 star. And it's getting a lot of traffic because you're having a dialogue. So you have to avoid engaging people like that. But I think just observe and see what the dialogue is and try to mitigate that on the other side of the business, in the customer service side. But yeah, you can sign up and then have a direct discourse with someone. But they can then take what you've said and put that up online, and get to be careful.
So I think I hear you saying that you actually avoid.
Yeah, I do not engage people, because the people who post to Yelp generally about my coffee shop or other coffee shops are usually taking one negative experience and really exaggerating it and getting very upset. And 9 times out of 10, you hear from those people, but you don't hear from the 20 other people who come in every morning and they know they know your name behind the counter and how you want your coffee and they hand it to you. You don't hear about all that, and so I tread very carefully there.
Yeah, keep something in mind about customer service. This is a little Psych 101. Next week I'm teaching a class at the Local Development Corporation of East New York. It's a 2-week thing on sales. And one thing I always tell someone is when someone calls you with a complaint, the last thing you want to do is defend yourself. Because if you defend, they're going to keep attacking, right? So just say, I understand how you feel. If I were you, I'd feel exactly the same way. And you know why that's a great line? Because it's always true. They are them and they feel that way, so if you were them, you'd feel that way too. And it helps to diffuse the situation, and that's why Jason has stopped getting involved in flame wars, because that's what it turns into. The moment you start defending your position, the person that's unhappy with you is just going to come up with all the reasons why they're unhappy with you.
Yeah.
Instead of handling it and saying, how can I help you? How can I rectify the situation? Not, oh, you're wrong, we didn't do anything wrong, and you don't understand. It's just useless. So I would keep that in mind for anyone that's has direct contact with their customers. Don't defend yourself. It can only lead to tears.
I'm curious. I mean, the Yelp, obviously, they're very quick to throw negative comments up there. After you saw that and learned from it a bit and used it as a focus group, how quickly, if at all, did it sway the other way?
Very, very quickly. I was surprised that we had some positive reviews like within days of our having a big staff meeting, and I don't think they weren't shills, and I don't think it was directly related to having had that. It might have been just a coincidence, but I think just having everyone sit down and think about the bad publicity that we just had recently is that someone came in and reviewed us as a sandwich shop when we're not a sandwich shop, and got really upset with us because we wouldn't make a substitution. But we open up like really expensive jars of chutney and put it on and just use that one jar, and we do 12 sandwiches and that's it. And it turned into this big conflict, and then they blogged about it, and we were falsely compared to other sandwich shops, but we're a cheese shop, and we had to decide whether to defend ourselves, and we realized it was a futile exercise to get defensive. But one thing it did do is it caused us all to have a big staff meeting and talk about the experience. And the person who was there at the store that day remembered it. And what felt great to me is that they said they are really, when they see something negative online about the shop, they take it personally, which showed me that they're really invested in the shop, even though they're not an owner. And it was great to hear that. But there was an instant impact because everyone realized that we have to be very careful about our reputation out there. And I got feedback from people who go into the store the following week talking about how they noticed a difference and that everybody was, there was some people having side dialogues behind the counter, which, customers come in and then they kind of feel like they don't want to interrupt the people behind the counter. So we immediately put a stop to that and told them, even if they don't want to engage, if the customer just wants to browse, you can't start a conversation with your buddy behind the counter because it's just too, difficult for the customer to realize they can interrupt. So things like that were instant changes. And it all was instigated by the Yelp dialogue.
Yeah. And your company's culture is going to start with you. You the owner, it starts from the top and goes down. Because what Jason's talking about is just essentially a corporate culture. And you can always tell the owner, the owner of a business based on his employees, his or her employees, right?